Hello everyone, I'm that 3D guy, and as mentioned in the previous session, this week we would be learning more about how we can use AI to export geometries from Alias to Blender. Uh, I would just say that this is not just about exports, it is all about how you can build your own plugin inside Blender, right? So we'll be using our own use case to build a plugin which can export the geometries from Alias and import it into Blender. Not specifically export, but to import parts in Blender and structure it in such a way that you lose a lot of hassle, right? You uh, have a lot of hassle when you are doing it manually. We'll be avoiding all of those things, but we'll be understanding how the mindset of it works and also how you can use scripting to your advantage. Like even if you are not a coder, like with zero coding knowledge, I was able to build a lot of plugins, a lot of scripts, and import them into Blender and just test them out and use them to my advantage. So we'll be seeing all those things. So yes, so as you remember, last time we had this form and I have just duplicated it 4 times with the materials assigned to it. As you can see, they are not even grouped, and it's not messy, I would say. It's just that the shaders have been assigned, nothing fancy, no stitching, nothing like that. So even if I want to export something, I'll have to keep in mind that yeah, there is no stitching. So whatever import I'll be doing in Blender, it could be completely nasty, right? And completely uh, yeah, something that would be very unforgiving. I would have to clean that up in Blender again. But with the help of the script, again, as I mentioned, this will be very helpful for us because it will come pre-sorted for us inside Blender. Let's look at how we are achieving this. So the main thing that I also want to point out is that whenever you're working with something like this, I'll just first split this video into some sections where we'll understand the different ways and the different steps that you need to take before you decide how you script, right? Or how you ask the AI to script it for you. So we'll just look into all those things. So yes, so the first thing is understanding the basics of the software and its API, right? So I don't want to use fancy jargons here, but one thing that I would like to mention here is that you need to at least understand how the software works. Obviously, you'll be working on that particular software, so basic knowledge of that software is required. Most likely, understanding where the tools are and how the tools work in that particular software are very important. For example, if I just want to maybe do a full cleanup, which we'll be seeing here, we need to understand what a full cleanup does. It just does not delete parts in Blender, right? It also purges all the data. It removes all the material instances and every linked block that is there in the file. So in case you do the cleanup, you need to mention that it needs to be a full cleanup and not just deleting of the parts, right? So that is something that you have to keep in mind when you're working with Blender and maybe other softwares as well. If you're doing the same thing in Alias, if there would have been a scripting in Alias, which there is, I think in Dynamo we have that. Obviously, it's not open source, so the coding is not widely known, and that is just limited to people who are actually doing Dynamo rather than visual coders and vibe coders like us. But the main thing is that they need to understand how the curves and how the surfaces work in Alias and how the tools are in Alias. So before doing that, so yes, the first point is understanding the basics of the software and its API, right? The next thing to export this is to plan the prompt, right? So the next thing would be to plan the prompt, and as you can see, I just have the four geometries here, or different materials. The materials have been assigned. Now if you take a look, I was able to plan the prompt in such a way that if you take a look over here, I have two materials of the same kind, like this: flip-flop sunlight over here and flip-flop sunlight and hashtag 2 over here, underscore gold part and underscore gold part, right? Over here we have metallic red, here we have metallic red, but over here we have metallic green and metallic blue, which is just repeated once. The main reason for doing that is, again, how I have decided I'll be planning my prompt and how I'll be exporting the parts. And obviously understanding the file extensions is also very important because you need to know how the files are being exported and imported, so that your final goal is achieved here, right? So let's see how I've planned the prompt. So I have my prompt here. Obviously, I've opened ChatGPT, and you can obviously use its free version to create the codes. And let's see what the prompt is here. Obviously, it took me multiple iterations to build this, but with some experience, you should be able to build a really good and a really, I would say, foolproof code with just I would say half an hour, 45 minutes to get your quick tasks done, right? So let's take a look. So yes, over here I have asked the AI to create a Blender plugin to import USD files from Alias. Now, why USD? So USD, the main reason why we are basically working with USD files and not FBX, because obviously FBX is one of the most used extensions which we use for exporting 3D geometries. The main reason why we are using USD is because it retains a lot of data. Obviously, it is a bit heavier, but it is also able to retain a lot of data like the material data, right? So not the material properties, but the material naming. In case I would have used something uh, like an FBX or an OBJ extension, it would have listed the shader as shader 1, shader 2, and shader 3. It wouldn't have understood what was the naming tag over there. But why I'm using USD is so that it can help Blender to understand the naming convention and how we'll be segregating it to group the objects inside our scene, right? So we'll understand about that in the further part of the prompt. The sorting and the merging of the parts should happen in such a way that the material names are used. Is it clear now? The material names are the main thing that we'll be using. Now this is where again you might have to go a bit on a different side, try to use your logical thinking, or use a little bit of logical thinking, and that is where you need to understand how and what part of the model can I use to ask the script to build something for me, right? So I had checked all the other options, and the only option that remained with me were obviously the object names, but the object names were something that is not reliable, I would say. But the materials, which obviously we use in Alias as well to apply shaders, is something that could be used. Again, I tried it with tolerances as well to merge objects, but again, that was something very vague. So I was able to use the uh, material names, right? So the first part till the last underscore, that is the separator in the string, would be the material in Blender, and the part after the last underscore would be the collection that they need to be placed in, right? The parts will have multiple empties above them with transforms, so they need to be cleared and preserved. So what do we mean by this is, I've tried, as I mentioned, I've tried a lot of different variations of the prompt, and I've come up with I came up with a very rigid prompt. So I knew that in Alias, basically what happens is, if we group something, if we keep grouping something, if I just do Control G and if I Control G, as you can see, it has multiple nodes in it. So if I just move this up, and if I just Control U and I select again, as you can see, it has multiple nodes, right? So these are treated as empties inside Blender, which can be very, I would say, annoying for us. So that is something that the script can help us to get rid of, right? So that is somewhere something where it will be very useful for us. Then we need to also mention the position, which is basically just after that. Like once this operation is performed, which is basically treating the underscores as separators. So if we go into our Alias scene again, we'll see that we have used a underscore here, which is acting as a separator, right? And the first part is the material name, the second part is the layer name, right? So this is how we want, or the collection name, where we want our Blender part to be saved in this collection, right? The red part is somewhere we'll be using the red part, it in the red part collection. Again, green part collection, blue part collection, these two, red part collection and this one, again will be reusing it. So the same geometry will go over here as well. then the gold part over here, and the flip flop sunlight material again being repeated inside the gold part. So that is very important. The naming structure is something that we have used for basically uh, segregating and putting them into collections and also merging the geometries. Perfect. Just after that, the parts with the same material string need to be merged together before finalizing where they need to be placed in the collections. So again, if we have a look over here, we have metallic red over here and metallic red hashtag 2. Now this is something that is not matching. But if we take a look at metallic green over here and metallic blue over here, these are something that are basically single parts, and they should be able to merge all the geometries contained within them, right? So if a geometry, if I select this, these two geometries should be merged together no matter what. Even if they are far apart, they will be merged. In this case, what we have done is we have used metallic red twice. So if I select this, we have metallic red over here, and if I use metallic red hashtag 2, we have it over here. So this will be merged separately, this will be merged separately, but they will go in the same collection, which is the red part. So this is how we are segregating the materials, correct? Perfect. The material name in the blender should just be the material name string and not the collection name, right? So the material name in blender should just be the material name string and not the collection name. So what we mean by this is basically when the material is being imported to blender, the material name slot should only have the material name section of the part, like only the metallic red part of it or the metallic green part of it, and not the entire metallic green underscore green part. So we'll understand more about it once we export the geometry, right? Now we have the second section, which is the example. So use as many examples as possible, because that is something that is going to help the script or the AI to understand how it needs to be implemented. So for example, the multiple parts with their material names abc underscore d underscore xyz and abc underscore e underscore ghi are being imported, right? So we have mentioned the parts that will be imported. This is just a hypothetical situation or just an example. abc underscore d underscore xyz, which is this one, needs to be merged, needs to merge all the parts that have abc underscore d. So if we have abc underscore d and abc underscore d over here, needs to be merged, right, and placed in the collection xyz. This is something that we had mentioned. So just before the last uh, underscore, we need to separate this, and this needs to be put into the collection. And abc underscore e needs to be merged together and placed in ghi. So abc underscore e needs to be merged together and placed in the collection ghi, correct? The naming of the parts inside the collection name should be collection name underscore 1 underscore 2 and so on. So just it could be something like uh, xyz underscore 1 underscore 2 and so on. The ui for it would be an import icon, and the text would be import USD from Alias. So this is something that we are now defining the UI for it, right? So again, you need to understand when you are building plugins in Blender, the next part is also to study the UI, how you want the UI to look like, right? The second part of the correct. The second part of the plugin is a cleanup tool which does an entire cleanup of the scene, including all collection material and mesh data blocks. It should have a confirmation window when pressed. Its UI need to be just below it. Its UI needs to be just below the USD import and should have a bin icon with the text full cleanup. The script should be properly structured with all the functions, classes, UI register and unregister, so that it can be modified later, right? So we are also trying to make it a bit modular so that we can use it wherever we want and however we want, right? The author is obviously that 3D guy, and also try to optimize the script so that the imports happen fast. Don't use canvas. So just some basic stuff over here, we are just trying to play around, and let's see what it has given us. So it gave us something like this. There were a lot of issues here, so I was able to like talk to it, the collection names are not being created. These are just some bug fixing that you'll have to keep doing. So that is why the next point is to understand the structure of the script. What exactly is causing what? And if we just keep looking, still no connection created, no same material objects merged. So we had a lot of issues here. We are trying to figure out what can be done. As you can see, it is just giving me some of these parts, which is just not the entire script but just some of the parts, which I had to just replace and understand what was happening. Again, some additional explanation, uh, and yes, just trying to figure out what needs to be done here, communicating again and again uh, with the ChatGPT and trying to get the maximum things, right? So yeah, I think this one was the final script that I received. As you can see, this is also not the final script but just the execute defining the execute of the operator, which is basically this operator that I was talking about. And if we have a look over here, we have import USD alias operator, which is the class, right? This class which is being defined, this execute was being copied, which is basically targeting how it needs to merge the data. Let's quickly go through the script once. So obviously this is the block, and I have zero coding knowledge, but just by playing around with the AI, I've been able to decipher a lot of things on what exactly the code does, right? What part of code does what. That is more important. The language in itself is not very important for a coder who is basically working with AI. The most important function is to understand what the script and which part of the script uh, is controlling what part of the software and the plugin, right? So again, these are some import functions. You need these to basically call some of the, I would say, some of the functions, and not the functions, but it is basically importing just some of the parts which are required for running the script, right, inside a Blender. So these are just some of the import BPY, import OS. So these are just importing some of the uh, yeah, functions which are basically helping the script to run, nothing major. Then these are the utility functions that which we had mentioned. We wanted a proper hierarchy of our script, which is very important. As you can see, we have clear transforms. So how we are starting it is with clear transforms and clean scene, right? Then we have defined the parse, material, and connect and collections. So this is basically trying to be used as a cleanup operator, right? Cleanup and merge the operators. So these are basically the utility functions that we are using here, which is basically cleaning the transforms, cleaning the scene, parsing the material and the collection, because we obviously need to parse the material names, right? Once it comes in the USD format, we need to parse the material names. Then ensure the material gets this name, ensure the collection gets this name, and then the merge object. So this is basically the utility function part of it. We don't care about what is written inside, just a basic overview is important. Then the import operator, this is one of the most important parts of the script, which is basically not just telling us how the script or how that particular class is being defined, but also linking it with the UI button, right, which we are going to use. So this is something that, again, as we can see, we have the entire script here, and entire part of the script here, and this is basically just importing the USD files from Alias, right? So the entire job of this particular class is to call in the part, use the utilities, and build something where we get the parts allocated the particular collections properly merged. This is our cleanup operator, right? So this is our cleanup operator which we had commanded commanded the AI to work on. Then this is our UI panel, right? So we have the UI panel, we have the layout operator over here, which is import scene USD alias with an icon of import, and another layout operator for the full scene full cleanup with an icon of trash, right? Then we register and unregister some classes, and that is where our script ends. It is a very small script, I would say 188 lines of code. I've worked on multiple, I would say a couple of thousand lines of codes as well, where there were so many tools, so many parts of it, which got very difficult for me to decipher as well at the end. But eventually, you need to understand that your script, I would say the order of the script is not very important, as long as they are linking each other with the functions, right? But visually, if you want to uh, maybe go through the script for some other person who will be working on, it is very important that you try to have a very organized layout. So that is why it is very important that at the start, when you're asking the AI to build something for you, it is important that you ask it to classify the utility functions, the import operators, obviously the cleanup operators and stuff like that. uh, Obviously registration, UI, these are the more common ones that you'll have to use, right? So once this is done, let's see how we can uh, use this in our Blender scene, right? So I'll just file and save. Obviously I have it in I have already saved it. But one thing that you need to understand is this is just Notepad plus plus. I like to use this more for just saving it. What I do is I just use file, save, and I'll just quickly save as. And if I show you, it is a Python file. You can also do the same thing in text editor with, there is an all files option. I don't know if it's here, but you'll find all types maybe, and you can just use an extension .py and it should function the same, because it is actually a Python file with a Python extension. So you can use the same script inside any text editor, just rename it as .py with save as type as all files, and it should work as well. Perfect. So once it is done, what I'll do is I'll just edit, go to preferences, I'll unload this one, uninstall. And to show you how we load it, we just go to edit, we go to preferences inside Blender, we go near the small arrow over here, install from the disk, go to desktop, and as you can see, we have alias to blender.py, the Python file that we had built, and import it here, right? So we have the add-on installed, and we have import USD from alias. That is something that we had asked ChatGPT to create an icon for import USD from alias, and a full cleanup with a trash icon, right? So let's see. Again, we go to alias. Let's go to maybe our desktop, and we have this forms 2, which I'll just get rid of for now. And if I just export, I'll select everything and I'll export. So file, select everything, file, export, and export active as USD. Perfect. And that should be okay. Save. And we'll go here, we'll create a new folder which is forms underscore 2 and save. Perfect. And it seems to be saved. Let's open it here. So I'll just use this plugin now. Import USD from alias. I'll go to desktop and let's refresh this. Why do we not have it? Okay, we have it under forms, forms underscore 2, and we have form underscore 2 USD. Let's open this. Perfect. Now, as you can see, we have everything imported, and the entire thing is exactly how we want it to be. So we have the red parts, the two red parts over here, which have been segregated. One is material underscore 2, one is material red, metallic red, one is metallic red underscore 2. We have the flip flop sunlight underscore 2 and flip flop sunlight. We have the two parts metallic green merged together, and we have the metallic blue merged together, exactly how the collection we wanted it to be in. So red part contains all the red parts, the blue part contains one single blue part which has been merged together, the gold part contains the gold part 1 and 2, and the green part contains the green part merged together. And if we take a look at the naming over here, we had exactly the same thing. The underscores are being treated as separators. The gold part, wherever the gold part is being used, it is being separated to two separate geometries, not just two separate geometries, but even the material names over here are defining how it needs to be. So one thing to keep in mind is that from Alias to Blender, or mostly in Blender, these signs, the hashtag sign gets converted to to underscore sometimes, so that needs to be kept in mind. But yes, that is why our material name inside the Blender UI was flip flop sunlight underscore 2 instead of hashtag 2. So this was a very simple tool that I was able to create. The full cleanup is doing exactly what it needs to be, full cleanup, and it gives us a pop-up which is a full cleanup pop-up. We just press OK and it cleans the entire scene. We don't have any residues over here. So if we see, we have no residues, no materials over here. Everything seems to be very clean. And again, if we just import it, we just import our forms, and within a second we have everything imported and correctly cleaned. Right, we did not have to stitch anything, no additional I would say hassle of merging parts in Alias or setting a tessellation value. Obviously you need a small tessellation value, I would say. If you go to Alias again, and if you just select everything and file, export active as, and you'll see that the tessellation type over here is fast. You could make it accurate and maybe 0.01. That way your geometry would be a bit heavier. And if you just save it, let's clean this now. So obviously you wouldn't see a lot of difference. As you can see, the geometry right now is also pretty decent, but it would be even better if we use a high quality data maybe. So yes, it's taking a longer time to import, but now it's here, and it should be much better than what we had previously, because the tessellation values are even lower now. So yes, now that we have it, it is something as simple as this and not very complex, I would say. Just a little bit of planning, a little bit of structuring, understanding what your code does, understanding what the software does. And let's see, maybe I'll come up with something even more interesting next session. We can even take it to another level, maybe try to improvise our scripts, understanding a bit more about UI, more about functions and stuff like that. Maybe a modeling session or something like that. I don't know yet, I have not planned it, but something that is more interesting. And yeah, I hope this video was very informative for you. And I've been using AI a lot for building these scripts, and for like yeah, building a lot of these scripts and understanding the UI, understanding uh, how it is answering, maybe connect with it a bit more. So yeah, it has been a fun experience for me, because I had zero coding knowledge, and this is something that I wanted to share with you guys, and hope you like it. If you have any questions, you can just put it in the comment section below, or you could also mail me at that3dguy23@gmail.com, which has been listed down here. So yeah, see you in the next video. Bye bye.